Part 1, Question 1, Article 2, whether sacred doctrine is a science. Well, the answer depends, of course, on what you mean by science. And when it comes to definitions like this, sometimes it's helpful to go back to the Latin, and if you do that, we find utrum sit scientia. So science or scientia, look that up, it means knowledge. Maybe we can reform the question, is sacred doctrine just an intuition or a feeling? Or is it the kind of thing that we can talk about profitably? Something we can learn more about through debate? Do principles apply? You take part in a Bible quote study, you read a passage, and then everyone sits around in a circle. What does this mean to me? Well, is that all there is? In other words, is it possible to get sacred doctrine wrong? Thomas cites an authority, St. Augustine, to this science alone belongs that whereby saving faith is begotten, nourished, protected, and strengthened. To this science. Objection 1. People disagree on religion. Everybody agrees that rocks exist. So we can have a science of geology. Everybody agrees that health and sickness exist. Okay, you can have a science of medicine or a science of mathematics, but not everyone has faith. How can you build a science without any shared starting point? We're all just talking past one another here. Or geology doesn't just talk about this rock or that rock, but all rocks or all metamorphic rocks or all pieces of granite. Doctors don't just study Jill's body or Peter's body, but the human body, everybody's body. Yet, with theology, you look at individual events like the testing of Abraham or Moses before the burning bush. Theology is more like a list of historical facts than a real science. And because it's just a list of historical facts, either you have faith in them or you don't. Really, what else is there to say? In summary, theology is either too broad or too narrow to be a real science. Thomas responds by making a distinction. We bear in mind, quote, we bear in mind that there are two kinds of sciences, and he gives the examples of arithmetic and music. Arithmetic proceeds from principles, quote, known by the natural light of intelligence, and music proceeds from arithmetic. Both are sciences because both proceed from principles, and that makes sense. Without mathematics, what could music theorists talk about? Without frequencies and scales and keys and other objective measures, they could still make beautiful music, but how could you talk about music without some math? Quoting the doctor again, sacred doctrine is a science because it proceeds from principles established by the light of a higher science, namely the science of God and the blessed. Principles apply. The principles come directly from God. The theologian accepts these just as the musician or the music scientist must accept the fact of arithmetic. Theology is a science, not because of what we put into it, but because of where it came from, God's revelation. And although individual particular facts are featured in theology, they are not the focus. God is the focus. Thomas keeps God as the focus. Faith is not about Abraham or Moses, it's about God. Thomas gives two reasons then why Abraham and Moses are cited. One, to give us examples to follow, that's Abraham, and number two, to give us motives for faith in the message that's delivered. God used signs and wonders during the Exodus so that we might believe what Moses tells us. But the Bible is not primarily about water and frogs. Thomas is again preserving both the value of science and the necessity of revelation.